That's right, folks. We are back. Welcome back to Hour 2 of Third Phase of Moon Radio. I'm your host, Dr. J. Andy Elias, one of the original researchers on a mission for the truth. We got a great hour for you today. Before we get to our guests, I want to tell some shout-outs of some comments that we received right here at Third Phase of Moon and according to the videos. One of them from All Stable reads, I think Blake Cousins are doing a great job getting the word out there. All Stable, we love your comment, and that's right, we are getting your word out there. Also, we have one more here I'd like to share. John Hart. What I can't get is, there are some really good cameras out there nowadays, so why can't we see a good photo of one? Let me tell you the problem. We do see good photos. I don't think you've searched our channel hard enough. We have several very good photos and they exist all over the world. The problem is we can't distinguish if they're real or not. No one has stepped up to investigate them. Some we truly believe are the real McCoy, such as Joe Kiernan's and Cordell Delos, who we'll be speaking about very shortly, and you already heard Cordell's. But that's the reason why I think so. John Hart, go ahead and look at our channel and you will find good photos. Anyway, back to Hour 2. First of all, we'd like to tell everyone Alien Human Project has been re-released with some new edits. You're all going to love it. We have now one of the submitters to our book, Third Phase of Moon, Top 12 UFO Sightings. His name is Joe Kiernan. He is a contactee and a real all-American UFO hunter. He lives in Myrtle Beach, which is a great hotspot. He has sent us several great videos, two of them which, as I said, are going to be featured in our book. One of them is of these amazing orbs which have seen by multiple witnesses over the beach. The other one is some craft that seems to cloak, and he caught this on his camera, and it's out there for the world to see. Without any further ado, we'd like to bring on Joe Kiernan. Joe Kiernan, how are you?
I am excellent tonight. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, of course. Anytime. You know, you're a submitter, you're a UFO hunter, and you're contacting so much great footage. We would love to tell your story to the world. I'd like to, I guess, jump right into it. You have so much activity going on, so many great videos. Will you tell the viewers what's happening on a daily basis by your house? Sure.
I would love to. If I can quickly touch on your first comment in regards to looking at Third Phase for better videos with better cameras out there today. Real quick on that is for a quick example with the orange lights I hope to discuss tonight. These orange orbs, which are truly, absolutely remarkable and fascinating. Last night I was in the house and my wife had stepped outside to go to the car and she ran back in and she pulled me back outside. So I didn't have...
Joe, I think we might have lost you. Are you still there?
I think he's going to have to call back, John, but I talk about some of Joe Kiernan's amazing videos that he sent to us right here at Third Phase. Well, certainly we have Joe Kiernan, UFO hunter from Myrtle Beach, back. We thought he may have been abducted there for a second, but he's back. Joe, tell us about this cloaking airship that you caught on video. It looked like a military flying machine created by typical military design. It looked like a fighter jet, but the thing stealthed out like something right out of like a Klingon ship you would see in Star Trek. Go ahead, Joe, tell us about that. And I know you've been doing some amazing live feeds. You've actually captured UFOs on camera during a live feed event.
Yes. With the aircraft that was cloaked, that was a very interesting night. It was a very clear night. We didn't have much airplane activity that day. It was very calm, and we were able to hear cars in the distance on the road. And I was pointed in the direction of southwest where I was standing, and it just appeared as two bright lights at first, and to the naked eye. And when I got a camera on it and it was coming closer to me, I was able to see a great deal of other lights on it, and they were arranged in a pattern I hadn't seen before. And with that particular camera, I usually have no problem even seeing the outlines of planes at night. It's a low light camera. You get pretty good visions with it. But with this one, it just the only shape I can describe of it is just in regards to all the lights that were on it. It made no sound. It was moving a little quicker than what a commercial airline would if I were to see one in that area of my sky. And as it crossed past me and was coming from my left to my right at this point, when it was now moving north, I had my eyes on it just for a few seconds more, and I don't know if all the lights just turned off on it. It just wasn't there anymore. It just wasn't there at all, and that's very unusual, obviously, but it's very unusual for what I'm seeing. That was an extraordinary thing. That was a one-time occurrence. It did come after a few straight days of seeing other strange lights in the sky. That's why we were there looking. But I had never seen anything like that before, nor since. That really was truly incredible. I just couldn't believe that it just wasn't there. There was no clouds for it to go to. It was a beautiful, clear night with many stars visible. I would have heard something, even on a calm night like that, even if it were a plane twice as far away as what this one was. I should have heard something.
You know, Joe, you're having so much activity right by your house. You mentioned something off air about these ponds. I know you've been collecting stuff on a daily basis almost. It's on your YouTube channel. I see it all the time. It's great footage. It's definitely anomalous. These objects seem to be coming to these sort of ponds for some reason. I don't know if it's for energy or for what reason, but they're obviously going there for something. You tell us maybe what your theories are, but I'd like to know where this started and when this started with you.
Well, if I may, I'll try to speak specifically on these orange orbs of light. I will call them an orb of light because it's what most people can relate to. They don't appear to be of a solid craft form. I can't give you any definitive shape except what appears to be a glowing energy ball of just pure orange colors. It is incredible. They do seem to be doing the same thing routinely. However, I wish I knew exactly what they were doing, but I could tell you what I see. They do appear to possibly enjoy or have the necessity of particular bodies of water in my area. They are areas with not many homes, not many people around. I have not seen them enter the water, but I have seen what appears to be smaller glowing orange balls of light that come from the water surface up to these orange lights. They really do like these bodies of water, and I say that because when they travel across the sky on any particular night, on any given night, 100% of the time, while they're traveling, they're not orange. They are usually a group of very bright flashes of a white light. It's not a light bulb that we're used to seeing. It's not incandescent. It's not a strobe. These lights are just brilliant. They will catch your attention, and there's usually a good number of them, within a dozen, sometimes 2 or 3 dozen, possibly more. Again, with these flashing lights, I can't tell if they are all of one thing or if they are individuals. However, when these flashing lights do go over these particular bodies of water, that's when they will stop where they are over the water and glow orange. And then when they are glowing orange, after about average 3 to 5 seconds, what they do is they actually accelerate away from me at a very, very high rate of speed. To most people who see these, I would expect them to hear that they saw these lights glow orange and then just fade out to nothing. But what they're actually doing is accelerating so fast that it just looks like it's dimming out. You have to slow down. You have to get good film and a good camera, and you have to be able to slow that footage down without losing any quality. And of course, if you put it on a tripod and you don't zoom in and out, you wouldn't have any skeptics saying that you're playing any camera tricks. If you set up a solid frame as a live stream per se, which I've done, I'm trying to give irrefutable video evidence because, as everyone, Blake, as you know, with Third Phase of the Moon, in the beginning when we first started speaking on all of this, it was, Joe was having good footage, but it wasn't good enough. We needed better cameras. We needed to find a better location, get a little closer, get better shots, get more convincing video. But then the problem changed. The problem now was you're getting too much video to be believable. And secondly, the more believable the video, it seems the less people believe it, ironically. I'll hear there's UFOs shouldn't do what your thing did in that video. I'm just videoing what's there, and these videos that usually post and related to these orange lights, they're usually checked out with the FAA database, checking flight records, and we do go through this. And when there's no aircraft in a particular area for a span of 4 hours, and during that 4 hours you're routinely videoing these incredible orange lights that are just coming in and out of your area, it's quite impressive. I have astonishing witnesses. I have pilots. I have one pilot who had to avoid these lights in his own personal aircraft, and he's got a 22-minute HD video of these lights himself while he was in the air. It's incredible stuff, and I'm not sure what someone needs convincing-wise when it comes to video. I'm not trying to persuade anyone.
That's what I'd like Joe Kiernan said.
I'm just trying to share with whoever's interested in what I'm seeing. And in all honesty, guys, I would much rather not even turn the camera on. It's much more enjoyable and it's more breathtaking to watch with your own eyes instead of staring into a little viewfinder. I video them for the people who are interested, and people have a lot of questions, and sometimes they vary from topic to topic. But I'm just hoping the people interested in their own missions and their own questions can possibly find answers through what I'm providing.
Well, Joe Kiernan definitely follows a 5-step program on how to shoot a UFO. He doesn't panic when he sees one. He takes a time and date, where he's at, what time it's happening. Then he stabilizes it by having a tripod, and then proceeds to zoom in and out to get perspective. And then fifth, the most important of all, is he shares it on YouTube, and then with Third Phase of the Moon, and then shares it with the world. And those are really important 5 steps. I'm not sure if Mr. Professor Searle and Bradley are here, but I wanted to ask Bradley and Mr. Searle what their insight on UFOs. Have they ever seen a UFO and seen an origin?
Well, I'd let John Roy take that. John?
I myself, I'm still waiting for the day to see one. Unfortunate. Though I did all my research work in an area well stated to be a UFO site, I, for some reason, never saw one. I'm still waiting to see one. If I saw one, I'll be over the moon.
And in Searle's case, we might as well say that the levity disk was perceived as a UFO many, many, many times.
That's by the press. But they did it because obviously they were paid to say that, because somebody got worked up about my name being associated with them.
Mr. Searle, this is Joe Kiernan here, and I was really excited to learn that you were on the program this evening, and I did get to ask you a few questions earlier in the first hour of the show, and I'm glad you're still here now. in relation to what I'm going to say next here. I did some small legwork in research. I'm really not trying to crack anything wide open, nor am I really trying to make any claims. However, I did do soil tests and water tests of the areas that I had in question, and it was particularly the soil samples which really grabbed my attention, and it was related to a few of the elements I mentioned earlier. In the soil in these particular areas where I tested, and I feel quite strongly I'm in a very good area because I'm able to walk over to where these lights are and go right underneath them, and at times they're often just 100 feet off the ground. The soil tests had a few rare properties in it that should not have been there. There were other soil tests done in other areas right nearby and adjacent to that had completely different qualities of soil. But the soil test I was most interested in, it had a high volume of iridium and osmium, and there was also carbon spherules and nanodiamonds, and a few other of the transition metal groups is palladium and platinum. On a physics level that you've worked with, is that any of those key markers for you for any projects that we would be interested in for anything related to high speeds? I know that might be out of your range.
I'm writing books. It's free on the internet. Explain how I was able to produce a technology, the things you've got to think about, how my mind works. Now, with every element, you can rearrange their structure, that you could rearrange your DNA, which will change your behavior patterns. Therefore, every element can have its pattern changed by careful analysis how you want to use it. Any project, radiation, you can find markers anywhere on the Earth if something has upset it. Some radiation have hit it and caused it to go to high spin, will give off a force which may be hours before it disappears.
And if I may, John Roy, I was going to ask you to address for the audience and for Joe and everybody, when you were launching the P-Craft, the earlier P-Craft, did they not cut a piece of Earth up and take it with it? Describe that.
Oh, yes. That was a major problem. Scientists checked, and what the conclusion they came to, they found iron in the ground. And what was happening, our flux lines was hitting this iron and causing eddy currents. When the craft lift, it pulled the iron up with it. And this meant that the Earth itself lifted up. So if there's iron in the ground, then anything with high magnetic radiation effect will cause that to lift, which we have seen so often with our early discs.
You know, Joe, I got another question for you. When did this start with you? Do you recall any memories of maybe seeing a creature or beings in your childhood of any kind?
Yeah, you know, it's really, the answer is yes. Yes, I do believe that my first interaction was, I was probably about 8 years old, and it was a very weird night. One of those nights when, I don't know if it happens to everyone, but for me, I've always been fascinated with lightning storms. And I was up late, maybe in the middle of the night, and I was the only one awake, and just looking out the window, watching the lightning strike the skies up. And I don't know if anything happened to me at that moment, but I started having dreams, starting that very night. And they were the same dreams, and I interpreted when I was younger that I was to look at the sky and pay attention. And it was so strange for a young guy, and especially where I was from and the family I was in, this was it was a strange thing for me to be speaking of. And I started seeing a lot of these lights when I was younger, a lot of the solid orbs that I still see today. I really didn't try to share it with many people, and I more or less tried not to pay it much attention. And it wasn't until a few years ago, after this has been continuing for many, many years, that I really started to pay attention and, more importantly, spend time outside watching and looking, more just for enjoyment and relaxation. And you start seeing orbs again, and luckily I'm now with people that I can share these things with. And when you're able to do that, you could now somehow involve sky watching into your activities. What was greatly beneficial for myself is in the last year and a half, I don't have to go looking for them anymore. I enjoy watching them with my wife and children. I could probably sit outside my back door on my patio like I do with my family regularly and probably watch them tonight. I'm expecting them to be here tonight. They were here last night. We got cut off earlier. I was trying to say my wife saw them last night, and we ran outside, and she has the iPhone 5, the newest iPhone, with a great camera. And we had a really good look at these things. They were right there, and it's really so dim on her camera that it really makes no sense even trying to show to anybody. And these are the cameras that people consider to be high-quality cameras that everyone has with them. And this was a very bright, glowing light just a couple 100 feet away. Videoing things at night is very difficult. It's as anyone could find out, just go outside with any camera you have and try to video a star. It's very difficult to pick up a star. You do need good camera work, and unfortunately, the cameras required for these things, they're really not the kind of gear people are carrying around all day long ready to go, unless you happen to know a good location where you can be ready for these things. And it's come to that point. I'm now able to set up live feeds as we provide for Third Phase of the Moon, and for all the listeners, it's an absolute free service. I am not interested in making any monetary advances off of it. I run a live feed in this area in hopes of some people watching it when I'm not able to.
Before we get back to our show, I just want to make some quick announcements for all you listeners out there. Be sure to join us next week. We have Jesse Marcel Jr., the last remaining Roswell witness who actually held the craft in his hand. The following week, we have Kathleen Martin and Denise Stoner. Kathleen Martin is Betty Hill's niece from the Betty and Barney Hill abduction story of 1961. Now, we are back again with Joe Kiernan, who is a contactee, a very well-respected ufologist, researcher who's produced several videos. We've also are joined by Bradley Lockerman and John Searle, the godfather of free energy, who's been commenting and asking some great questions. We have also joined by Preston Dennett, MUFON researcher of 23 years, original co-host to this radio show, and also author of 15 awesome books, 2 more coming out. And I know you had a great burning question, Preston, before I did, so I'm going to let you go ahead and take it.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I have a bunch of questions. Hello, everyone. Well, first, actually, I've got a comment regarding what John Searle said, in which the Earth was lifted up out of the ground by your disc. That matches exactly what's happened in a number of UFO cases, and I'm glad I finally understand what's happening there. There's been a number of UFO cases where UFOs have hovered over an area and just ripped up the ground as they took off. So that's amazing that you've explained that. But now I wanted to actually ask Joe a couple of questions. And my first question is, when you're filming these things, how close does the closest one come to you? And have you ever felt any fear, or has it ever reacted to your thoughts or your commands?
Very good questions. Very good questions. Okay, I'll try to handle them in order. The closest these orange lights have come have been, I want to be fair and say 40 feet away, which is really not that far. And at that point, when they were about that distance away, they were only, it was maybe 10 feet off the ground to about 20 feet off the ground. So when I say it was 40 feet away, I'm just estimating the amount of space between my neighbor's house and mine. And I'm saying it was about half that. And it was 10 feet off the ground because I basically saw the first floor of my neighbor's house underneath the light. And the top of the circle of this orb was to about his roof. So I was able to get a good estimate on that.
Well, yeah, the reason I ask is because I've come to the conclusion that whenever a UFO is within about 100 feet of a person, it pretty much means they're having something more than just a sighting. And that the UFO is absolutely, or whoever's inside the UFO is absolutely aware of them and showing themselves to you on purpose. You're right.
And to wrap it, unfortunately, there really is some sort of a problem with electronics, at least with myself when the lights are at its closest. Usually when my cameras, they want the cameras I use that have memory cards. The memory cards are usually no good at all. They're not good in the future. They don't even know they're a memory card. It's just useless. At times I've actually had my Canon camera, it didn't even know it was a camera anymore. It didn't have any software in it. I had to send that back and get redone. I don't know why it does that. I don't sense any changes. However, I don't work with any tri-field meters or magnetometers. I'm just involved in videoing them. To finish it all up, I do certainly believe that they recognize I'm there. They do go to a location that other houses in my neighborhood won't be able to see where they are. You'd have to be standing right where I'm standing to see them, or you would have to go into the woods a little bit.
Hey, Joe, this is Brent Cousins talking. Hey, I know you're a family man, and you have a wife and kids. I'm just wondering, what does the Kiernan family take? What's their take on this whole situation there in Myrtle Beach?
Well, they're quite interested in it. It's pretty obvious they're not the aircraft we're accustomed to. It really, as I said, when it's in this proximity, it's quite obvious. They're not making sounds. They're just glowing balls of this energy light. They find it amazing, the wife and children. They find it incredible, but at times they do get a little frightened, and they don't want to be outside any longer. And I should have mentioned this in our last question as well. It's not I've spoken to them thoroughly, as well as other people who have seen these now. It's not a sense of fear. It's just being overwhelmed that frightens them. Myself included, and everyone I speak to with these lights, no one's really scared where you have fear. There's no fear. It's just an overwhelming realization, if you will, that, oh my goodness, it's really real and it's right here in front of me. And usually when they get extremely close, it's very understandable to be very frightened because there's so many uncertainties. So many people have so many outrageous theories that you don't want most of them to be true. They're usually not the most fruitful stories. However, with the lack of fear, the people who will calmly try to watch them again, a second time or more, if you could just remove that overwhelming anxiety that becomes present, most people will admit to having a very good feeling. It almost comes across, at least for me, it's empathetic. It's for me, when they're at their closest, and if you just remain calm and try not to frighten it, if you'll give me the poetic license to say that, if you just try to remain calm and pay attention, you should, in my case, receive some sort of messages through empathetic passages. It'll send images that you recall as if it's you're remembering something, or as if it's happened before, and you just can't remember all the details. But it's the empathy that comes with it that's truly remarkable.
Joe, we actually have a caller. Area code 626. Welcome to Third Phase of Moon. What's your name, and do you have a caller for our guests? A question.
Yeah, I have a question, but hi, my name is David Nava, and I didn't come in on the call on time, so I'm not sure what the topic is. I mean, I know it's all UFOs, but I didn't hear the introduction.
Yeah, David, this is Blake Cousins. Thanks for joining us right here at Third Phase. I invited you on via Skype. We're getting contacts from around the world. People have questions for Third Phase of the Moon, myself, Blake Cousins. Tonight we're talking with Joe Kieran, the UFO hunter from Myrtle Beach, and in regards to his incredible video captures he's been getting over there for the past year. And then we also have Professor John Searle, who is a free energy device manufacturer, and he had his device confiscated by unknown sources. Well, I think they may know who the source is, but they're not revealing where the machine's at, and possibly changing the world as we know it as far as free energy. So that's what we have on the show right now with host Dr. J. Elias and Preston Bennett, a famous author of UFOs over California and many other books in the UFO phenomenon. David, have you ever witnessed the UFO, or any questions for the panel?
I don't have any photographs or anything like that. I think I may have, but not really definitively sure. Although I did email you a couple days ago. I'm in Oklahoma right now, and my question was, during the Oklahoma tornadoes 2 weeks ago, there were photographs and video on the news of UFOs flying around the tornadoes. And at the time, the newscasters did not address the UFOs that were flying around. They completely ignored it. And so my question was, did anyone, or were you aware of any of that?
Certainly, David, we did receive a video right after the Moore disaster of incredible lights. And let me get into it. We're trying to get the source of where this video came from. But what it looks to us right here at Third Phase Moon was a fleet of UFOs in orb-like fashion, basically the same thing that Joe Kiernan captures, these glowing orange orbs. But there was a fleet of them hovering over more just hours after the disaster, and it was captured by Mike Anderson. And you could take a look at third phase of the moon, UFO sightings, fleet of UFOs flying over Moore, Oklahoma tornado. Look it up on YouTube, fleet of UFOs flying over Moore, and you'll see some more amazing footage that was submitted to us right here at third phase of the moon. Some people think they could be souls of lost people that were, killed on the scene, and that was their souls captured on video. I don't know what they are, but they're definitely unidentified flying objects.
Blake, if I can touch on his question a little bit. Hello, sir. Thank you for calling in, first of all. And I was able to see the videos that were submitted to third phase of the moon in regards to the light phenomenon that was occurring during the tornadoes in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Sorry for your state and everything you had to go through, and for everyone's losses there. With that video, I do see lights like that regularly. They are very similar, and I can't say the same because I wasn't there, but it's very similar to what I see. It's very interesting you bring that up. Just today, I received an email from someone in my area, per se, a little out of the normal area of people I speak to. But this gentleman had very interesting things to say, and it was corroborating a lot with what I see. And this gentleman said he sees a lot of these same lights I see, and his descriptions were quite impressive because he said that the lights that he sees usually come from the southwest direction, which is quite normal for me and many others. But in his case, he stated that a lot of these lights are usually, they occur for a day or two at night prior to a cold front moving into the area. And I found it very interesting because that was something I wasn't looking for, but I had noticed that routine. And I just hadn't researched that routine enough to really put any basis on it. And I just heard that today, and it really had me thinking all day long, because here on the East Coast, Hurricane Sandy that had came through the East Coast and pretty much decimated the New Jersey shoreline, that originally was making a due course for the South Carolina coast where I am. And the night prior to them hitting here was one of the best shows of these orange lights that my family and I had seen. And they were then spotted that same night going up the coast to a few other states. It was something my wife and I had joked about, and I had been trying to pay attention to this pattern, but I find it interesting now that a lot of people are starting to mention the weather phenomenon associated a day or two following, or they follow a day or two after a unique storm comes through, a powerful energy storm. These are similarities I would like to look into.
I can definitely corroborate some of that UFOs do have an effect on weather in terms of, fog and things like this. And I'm certain that in some of these cases, they are controlling the weather to a certain extent. And absolutely, as far as UFOs and tornadoes, there is a long history of UFOs appearing over natural disaster areas, such as volcano eruptions, like in Mexico, that volcano that's really hard to pronounce, or especially with earthquakes. So yeah, there's definitely some pattern there.
The Kilauea volcano that we did a special report right here at Third Phase Moon, we wanted to find out if volcanoes were magnets for UFOs. We spoke to the park ranger. We weren't able to get the answers on film, but off the record, there were reports that came in regards to the UFO phenomenon, many sightings, and we were actually there where a UFO was captured on one of their main featured photographs of the Kilauea volcano. Quite amazing. Are UFOs magnets? Are volcanoes magnets for UFOs and heavy cloud formation storms? I think so. I think there's some kind of static electricity that causes, possibly ball lightning, but ball lightning doesn't last for very long. I think that pretty much maybe has a 1 minute duration of lifetime of its form. But these things that Joe Kiernan are catching are not ball lightning. They're definitely aircraft, military, I think, in certain points, because these things really look like military aircraft, but very, very unusual, with cloaking capabilities 40 years in advance of technology. Mr. Searle had technology that they claim that are powering their Air Force, their battleships. Is that correct, Mr. Searle? Bradley?
No. We actually were filming in front of one of the very large aircraft carriers down in North Island, San Diego. And it was suggested that because the SEG is scalable, an SEG could be built to not only power the aircraft carrier itself ad infinitum, but if you built a craft the size of Starship Ezekiel, a design of which is down at the Searle Magnetics lab, original design, by the way, if it was built large enough, it could actually lift right out of the water an aircraft carrier. Is that true, John?
Yes. It would lift it up, and you could take it to dry dock and gently sit it down.
You know, I'm convinced that John Searle's technology is exactly what these ETs are using, so they could fly around this universe with this massive no gravity that could get them beyond the speed of light, that are clearly not using fossil fuels like we are. Otherwise, they'd run out of fuel on the way to not even a tenth or a millionth of a light here. But Joe, I got to ask you this. Are there any military bases around, and how many of these crafts are acting like military drones or maybe tests of new ships, and how many of these craft are actively looking like they are violating the known laws of physics that are on the lines of what John Searle knows to be true, which our physics are wrong?
Not only, real quick, before we get to Joe's answer, it's straight out of The Avengers, the biggest money-making movie of all time besides the Titanic, I think, and Avatar. But they portrayed basically what you just described, Bradley. It was a battleship, the size of a battleship, floating around in the air. And it was didn't seem like it was a problem. The thing was it's heavy. It must have weighed 100,000 tons of some sort. Who knows how much it weighed. Just basically what you just described reminds me of that movie. And I just want to say that. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, the nearest Air Force base for me would be about 125 miles, and then in the other direction, about 150 miles. These two Air Force bases are just routine operations Air Force bases. To the public knowledge, there is no test aircrafts, no test facilities being done. There's no test ranges here. However, testing is allowed by the military. Well, they are allowed to test virtually wherever, if need be. But they do test, of course, over the ocean. But I'm not looking out over the ocean. I'm looking in the ocean direction, but not that far. I'm about 5 miles from the ocean itself, and I'm just looking a couple hundred yards on the regular. But it's not often that I would see a strange aircraft in particular. It's usually just single-engine planes I see. I do have a small-engine airport about 10 miles away, and sometimes those aircrafts come by. And occasionally we see a commercial airliner, but they're few and far between. The flight pattern to Myrtle Beach International is about 15 miles east of me, and you could usually see that line of planes coming and going. So it's very irregular to have anything over my house per se. And one of them was that very unique craft of the video that Third Phase of the Moon has. Where that one came from and where it went is still beyond me. That was a very strange one because it really caught me off guard. At first I thought it was some sort of a military plane playing a game on me per se, trying to trick me.
Joe,
however,
let me add in, you've got some great videos of these UFOs chasing some of these planes. Those are available videos on your site, which, by the way, real quick, before we go off in a few minutes, why don't you tell everybody your YouTube channel before I get to my question?
Sure. If you go onto YouTube and you just search my name, Joe Kiernan, that is the name of my YouTube page. The last name is spelled Kiernan.
Excellent.
All of my videos on there. I am just short of 200 videos. All of the videos are ad-free. I'm not trying to make any money off of that site. Those videos are there to help other people possibly answer questions they have.
Very good, Joe. Now,
so please,
one other great thing. With all those witnesses, because you've had several witnesses when you've been recording these, when you've been seeing these, especially that one that we talk about in the book where you went to a friend's house who didn't believe and then he did. How many people would you say that were witnesses to your events that came in there as skeptics turned into believers?
I would say it's a great number. I have easily showed these lights to 100 people, most of which only came to see them because they were tired of hearing me say it. But percentage-wise, if I had a non-believer with me and I showed them to them, it is virtually 100% rate on the change of mind. I've had exceptional people here. As you guys know, I've had reporters here that have seen these lights. It's quite astonishing, and we really can't get an answer on what they are. But it is happening. It's a present tense thing. This isn't years ago. This is right now.
It's happening right now. It's happening all the time. Joe invites people, if you're living in Myrtle Beach or you want to take a trip to Myrtle Beach, go there, watch it all. Briefly, we got a couple minutes. I'd like to give everybody on the panel, maybe under 20, 30 seconds, if you could all make some closing comments or a quick question. Let's start with you, Bradley, then Blake, then John, then Preston.
Yes, thank you. I want to thank you, John, and Brett and Blake, of course, and Third Phase of Moon. Appreciate your audience and the time you've given us today. I would look for toroidal fields. The unique thing about the Searle device, especially when it's in the levity disk form or the IGV form, is that there is a toroidal field around the rim, and it's that toroidal field that encases the device itself, the flying craft itself, and gives it its own relativity. John Roy, I think you said it's like squeezing a watermelon seed. The way it flies, it just shoots out. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, that's the nearest way you can explain how it moves. It's the forces between the planets and sounds and that acting on you that makes you shoot forward.
I want to thank John Searle, Bradley, Dr. J. Andy Elias, Joe Kiernan, and Mr. President Dennett for being here at Third Phase of Moon. If anybody's captured anything amazing, you could send it to us at Third Phase of Moon via Skype or Facebook. Thanks, everybody. My name's Blake Cousins, and we'll see everybody again next time. John?
Yeah, of course. You know, this is Dr. J. Andy Elias. We got some great guests coming up. Like I said, we got Kathleen Martin coming up in 2 weeks. Next week, we have the Jesse Marcel Jr., Stanton Friedman, Carrie Cassidy are going to be joining us next month. Of course, we'll have another panel with John Searle and Bradley. And Preston, real quick, why don't you tell us what your comment 30 seconds in before the show closes?
Yeah, well, it's an honor to talk to you guys. I'm really impressed with you, John Searle, and I'm hoping that this technology gets released soon, because it's obvious that our government definitely has possession of it. And Joe, I had one last question for you. If one of these lights, what if they landed and opened up? Would you go on board and film this stuff? Because that's never happened yet, and that's going to happen sooner or later.
Yes, I would.
Good.
Yeah,
good.
You know, given the opportunity, that's a big yes.
The show is over. Thank you, gentlemen. John Searle, Bradley Lockerman, Joe Kiernan, Preston Dennett, Blake Cousins. It's been an amazing show. All you out there, Third Phase of Moon Radio, live every week, Thursdays, 8 to 10 p.m. Thanks again.
Thank you for listening to Revolution